There is a hidden skill which decides who rises fast in the corporate world and who stays behind. It's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's not hard work. It's the ability to manage up. It's about working with the boss and not for the boss. But here's the catch, nobody talks about it. The people misunderstand this as something like sucking up to your boss, while it's not, and we'll talk about it. It's not taught in business schools, it's not taught in any onboarding programs, and yet this one single skill decides how your career is going to shape. Let's jump in and discuss this. Age of 30, most professionals reach and hit the same wall. They're working hard, they're respected in their teams, they're seen as good performers, they're seen as high potentials, but they don't grow. They're invisible to the senior leadership. A LinkedIn workplace trend report indicates that high performers are promoted only 12% faster than average performers. Only 12%. Why is that? Because beyond a certain level, performance is not the only indicator. Performance is taken as given. It's partnership that's the indicator. That's the differentiator. And partnership requires you to manage up. Let's start by first discussing the elephant in the room. There is this huge misconception that managing up means sucking up to your boss. It's not flattery. It's not playing politics, and it's not being the boss's favorite. Managing up is a leadership behavior which requires you to understand the goals, the pressures, and the constraints of the person you report to, and ensure that you align your actions in the direction of meeting those goals and minimizing those pressures that your boss faces. Remember, you can climb the ladder faster when someone above is holding the ladder steady. There are 5 behaviors of people who understand how to manage up. The first one is to understand the difference between what your goals are and your constraints and pressures, and realize that your boss also has their own goals and pressures and constraints, cost reduction, the headcount constraints, and things like that. The people who manage up well have aligned their goals and their priorities with that of their boss. They deliver those output which makes their boss and therefore themselves look successful and better. They do all actions to make their boss successful. A PwC global survey shows that 70% of the senior leaders say that their biggest constraint is managing different requirements and pressures with limited time. So, if you want to manage up well, the first thing you need to do is to ask yourself, what goals are putting pressure on your boss to deliver this quarter or this year? What is her priority for the immediate quarter or immediate year? You need to understand that, and it's not always obvious because there are competing demands and they will talk about all of them. But there is one or two or three which are the most key. Find out which are those top two and align your outputs with those two. Let me give an example. So if the focus and the pressure on her to deliver this quarter or this year is on margins, then you present your project on workflow improvement, not as a workflow improvement project, but a project which will improve the workflow, which will reduce the time by about 10% for completing end to end, and hence reduce cost by 12%, which should impact the margin. This changes everything. Your output now is aligned with what your boss is under pressure on. Suddenly, you're not just updating them, you're not just doing any random project, you're helping them win. The second, and the one which I see is a big issue nowadays everywhere, is that people are waiting for clarity. They're saying we're not clear, the boss is not explaining things very clearly. Don't wait for clarity. Create clarity. According to Gallup, most employees, roughly about 58% of the employees, say that they're not clear about what is the expectation from the boss. But remember, most managers, most leaders don't have time to provide this clarity. They are under competing demands which are taking up their limited time. Top performers don't wait for clarity. They create clarity, they drive clarity. Let's take an example. If you're unsure of what is the priority to your boss, and there are three different options, so you could say, instead of saying that I don't know which one should I prioritize, you please advise, instead of that, say these are the three things which we are working on. Knowing your overall goal for the organization, I suggest we do this one out of the three right now and the two later. I hope you are aligned with this focus area. Managers love when you simplify the problem and do the thinking for them. Not necessarily they will agree with you, but they like the fact that you have understood what is the overall priority and you have tried to find a solution. You take control of the conversation. Managers love employees who simplify, who reduce the uncertainty instead of just cribbing. Offer solutions. Don't just state problems. Bringing a problem without an offered solution creates just more work for the boss. Remember, she is struggling for time. Instead, if you come with the problem but also a structured approach on how to resolve it, it builds trust. It builds partnership on how to solve this issue. A Cornell study showed that managers prefer team members who frame the challenges with possible solutions and consequences. Let's look at another example. Customer complaints have gone up 8%. Here's the possible reasons why it's gone up, and here are the three actions that we can take. I suggest we take action 2 first, because that will have the biggest impact. This is managing up with maturity. Managing up does not mean you don't challenge. You challenge, but with intelligence and timing. Understand the difference between challenging and confrontation. Strong leaders like challenges, like people who challenge them, but they don't like confrontation, especially not in front of a lot of people. High impact professionals do three things when they challenge. One, they use data, not emotion. They challenge the idea, not the person. And they do all this in a private setting, not in public. MIT's Leadership Lab found that employees who challenged constructively with their managers saw 25% more success than the others. Here's a suggested script. You could challenge back saying that, here's an alternative view. The data suggests XYZ. Can we investigate this option too? If you notice, there is no ego here, just clarity and confidence. Here's another very important thing about managing up. You need to reinforce your boss's direction with your team. So what does it mean? It means not just managing up, you manage down. There are times, and especially in terms of times of transformation where change is happening, you realize that it's a tough one and needs to be managed with a larger team. My suggestion, first, get convinced. Do all the 4 steps mentioned above. Once you are convinced about the direction, and sometimes even if you are not convinced, but if everyone feels the same in the team, just go with the leadership direction, because your ownership is important. And then go and manage down with your team and talk to them with the same conviction. Your job to translate the boss's direction into a conviction for your team, a meaningful conviction. Convert that into meaning for them. Honestly, I find this behavior very rare in the leadership team, in many managers, but this makes you valuable. Google's Project Oxygen found that one of the most common attributes of very high performing managers is the ability to communicate vision very clearly to their teams. Understand that. Let's look another example. Instead of communicating to your team that the boss wants faster delivery or the leadership wants this time to deliver to improve, instead of that, you could say, look, time to deliver is an issue. It's hurting our customer retention. We need to find ways to deliver faster for improvement of business in our region. So you converted this from just a top down, which I don't know, I'm just a messenger, to ownership, to convert that into meaning for each of your team to understand why this is important and why these changes are important. You create connection, you create alignment. This is also managing up. Once you cross your early career stage, your further growth is not dependent on your individual brilliance. It's about how you manage your team and how well you manage your manager's expectations. Remember, by mid-career, you're evaluated on your judgment, on your reliability, on your cross functional alignment, your influence, and strategic awareness. Understand this. This is key. All these are strengthened by managing up. You transform from being a great executor to being a strategic partner to the leadership. And remember, partners grow much faster. Before your next meeting, ask yourself, what is the one decision that my boss needs to make this week or this quarter? And what can I do? What information, what analysis, what new idea can I bring to make this decision making easier for my boss? If you do this consistently, your boss will start seeing you differently, not as somebody who needs supervision, but somebody who's a partner in their goals. And once you become the partner, your career takes a different trajectory. Hope this is useful. Until the next week, stay unstoppable.